So in the last video, we talked about operations between functions, and now I'd like to talk about composition. Once again, this is solely an example video. There are no notes involved with this particular video, just a bunch of examples. So if you'll go down to the composition section, which begins here, and let's go to example number 10, and I'd like to look at the second part of example number 10. You see that it says g of f of x. Now I know that you see that it's written there twice, and there's a reason for that. Whenever I see it written with the open circle, I would rather write it using a different notation. I gave it to you earlier in the notes. And that notation just says, let's take the second part of this and put it into a set of brackets. So using my order of operations, which talks about the inside first, f of x is what I really want first. And in my directions, I was told that f of x is 9 minus 2x. So I'm going to take out the f of x and replace it with 9 minus 2x. Notice I left the g there. I haven't done anything with it yet. In class, we talked about things like g of clock, or g of calculator, or g of ugly. And so this is essentially what I have right now, g of ugly. So if you'll go back up to the directions, this says g of x, but every time I see an x, I'm going to replace it with the word ugly. G of ugly is negative 5 ugly plus 2. So that's exactly here what I'm going to be writing, negative 5 ugly, but I left it blank there, plus 2. Now, what goes in for ugly? Well, ugly came from the line above that. So this guy right here is what's going to be replaced into that ugly spot. So 9 minus 2x gets replaced, and now I'm just going to work my order of ops to be able to clean this up, combine my like terms. I have 10x minus 43. I believe I was asked for the domain on this one. No variables in the denominator, no variables underneath the square root, so we have a domain of all real numbers. If you'll take a look at example number 11, the first piece, again, same thing. So first, let's take this and rewrite it f of g of x, so that g of x is what's getting taken out first, getting substituted first, and I already had that written there. So take your g of x out, replace it with what it equals. This one was pretty easy because g of x is just the same thing as x. So now I'm being asked for f of x. Well, that's pretty easy because f of x, we were told what f of x is. It's written right up in here. So go ahead then, write your f of x down. And then the last thing is go find domain. And we've already discussed in the last video how the domain of this is all real numbers, because every single thing that you could ever plug in for x causes a positive underneath your square root. So we have a domain of all real numbers. Slide down then to example number 12. And in example number 12, we're being asked to find f of x. So again, take out f of x, the one on the inside, and replace it with 2 minus x. Now I would look at this and call it f of ugly. And so if you come back up here to the directions, f of ugly is 2 minus ugly. So here's my 2 minus ugly. Every time I say the word ugly, I leave an open set of parentheses. Replace it with what's above. This is what ends up going in. So I have 2 minus the quantity, 2 minus x. Now just clean this up using the order of operations. Make sure you distribute your negative there. And I end up with just an x. Domain of this then, no variables on bottom, no variables underneath a square root. So we have a domain of all real numbers. And that's that for this particular video.